Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the October 24th City of Franklin Municipal Planning Commission meeting. Thanks for being here. We will get started with our minutes from our September meeting. Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if there's any items that are not on tonight's agenda that you'd like to speak to the commission about, if you'll come forward. All right, seeing no rush, we'll move on. Oh, okay, come on forward. If you'll, when you come forward, if you'll tell us your name, where you live,
Sure.
and
My name is Amy Black, and I live.
go ahead and say it into the microphone if you don't mind. We've got millions of people watching on TV that want to hear who you are.
My name is Amy Black, and I live in Riser Point subdivision. So I'm here to talk about, my house is directly on the retention area that has not been completed. And so I have pictures of that, and I just want to bring to the attention of everyone that it's certainly an eyesore, that area, and the mosquitoes have been terrible over the summer. So my children haven't been able to play in the backyard, and when they jump on the trampoline, there's like swarms of mosquitoes. So we're concerned that Riser Point's continuing, the Goodall's continuing to build more homes, and they haven't finished that particular area. So there's also, it's supposed to drain the water when it rains, and it's stagnant. I have pictures I want to give you guys. So it's not doing what it was designed to do, and we haven't really been filled in on the plans to complete this project.
Okay, all right, thank you. If, do you have multiple copies or just one?
I just have one.
Okay, if you'll give that to Elaine, and we'll appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Oh, yeah, come on up. If anybody else wants to speak, if you'll go ahead and start making your way to the front, we'd appreciate that.
My name is Mary Ann Dotson, and I'm a member of the Franklin Housing Commission, and I'm here because neither Elizabeth, our chairman, nor our co-chair, Paul, are in town and were able to come. They have both submitted a letter to this body regarding two different subjects. The first being that I would like to address is lot sizes. On our regularly held meeting on October 3rd, Alderman Speedy had requested that a presentation be given to us about a planned development near Berry Farms and off of Lewisburg Pike. The mission of the City of Franklin Housing Commission is to encourage the production and maintenance of affordable housing, raise community awareness of potential business opportunities involving partnerships with neighborhood residents and community development organizations, and advise the mayor and aldermen of affordable workforce and moderately priced housing issues and options. The Commission believes that limiting lot sizes for potential housing developments in the city to 45-foot lots, as required currently by the Envision Franklin, reduces the opportunity for more flexible ways to address the city's need for attainable and workforce housing, whether that be a single-family home, townhouse, condominium, or multifamily home. Per our mission, we support any endeavors that are working towards providing and maintaining affordable housing, and it is our belief that allowing for a variety of lot sizes, this will spur production with both the private and the nonprofit sector. We understand and appreciate the amount of time and study that has gone into the Envision Franklin, but we ask you to consider each project on its merit, and especially if a proposed project is addressing the need for attainable and workforce housing by including that in their development. We want to support and encourage the Planning Commission to consider future development projects that have proposals for varying lot sizes. Okay. The other subject that we also discussed at the October 3rd meeting was the accessory dwelling units. We had quite a bit of discussion on that, and after much discussion, a motion was made and overwhelmingly ratified by the commission to ask that this requirement for ADUs be removed from the new zoning ordinance. The proposed updating zoning ordinance expands overlay allowing ADUs, and this provides the opportunity for city to address its need for attainable housing. The Housing Commission believes that limiting ADUs to solely be on properties that are only owner-occupied limits the potential for such units to be an innovative way to address the city's need for attainable housing. Since the proposed zoning ordinance already requires short-term rentals to be owner-occupied, if an ADU was to be used as a short-term rental, it would have to comply with the ordinance regarding that provision. After much discussion with planning leaders and sustainability representatives of the city, the Housing Commission came to understand the city's concern of possibly changing single residential to multiple family residential if ADUs are not required to be owner-occupied. The Housing Commission does not intend to change the zoning of any neighborhood with this request, but we believe that requiring ADUs to be owner-occupied creates an unnecessary burden on the homeowner and limits innovation towards attainable housing initiatives within the city. And we believe that designation of to control multi-residence could be covered separately in a designated rule or regulation. We respectfully request you to consider the Housing Commission's recommendation in the proposed zoning ordinance and remove the requirements for ADUs to be solely on properties that are owner-occupied.
Okay.
Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. And I hate to ask you this, but we'll actually talk about the zoning ordinance later in the agenda. If you want to stay around, you might
Get some
want to
notes?
say what you just said again.
All right.
We're having that conversation. I'll leave
Okay.
that up to you, but we
I
will be
didn't
talking
see it
about that
on the
later.
agenda is the reason I
No, wait, yeah,
volunteered so early.
no problem. It's item 54, I believe.
Thank you.
It's the last item. Okay, any others? Now, again, this is items that are just on, that are not on tonight's agenda, if you want to come forward about this. Okay. Staff, any announcements?
Just that there will not be a meeting in November, and so the next planning commission meeting is December 12th.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone want to place an item that is not on tonight's agenda on the agenda for consideration? Non-agenda items that want to be considered for the agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. So ladies and gentlemen, this is an agenda that is considered non-controversial that we'll vote on at one time. And the items that are currently on tonight's consent long list, items 2 through 47, 50 through 52. If any of these items that you would like to pull, this is for the audience, the commission, or the staff, if you want to pull from the agenda, please let me know and we'll consider those as part of this motion. All right, I see none, then I will entertain a motion.
Move for approval of the consent
Second.
agenda.
It's a blended motion. So we have a motion from Scott, a second from Alma. Any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Then that means we are moving to item number 48. And that is approval of the 2020 Franklin Municipal Planning Commission calendar without any photographs, I think. It's just
Did we approve
dates.
the minutes?
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Yes, we
Oh,
did.
we did, I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so staff, do you want to talk about the calendar?
Sure, I can speak to the calendar.
For the 2020 calendar, we are again combining the typical November, December meetings into one single meeting that is in early December. Otherwise, it's standard format.
Okay. Now, just as a matter of function, anybody in the audience wants to come forward and talk about a calendar? Seeing none, we'll move on to the commission. Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Did you get 12 months of payment?
No. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. So item number 49, consideration resolution 2019-89, a resolution amending the Apex PUD subdivision to extend the vested rights for the property located in the northeast corner of the intersection of Carruthers Parkway and McEwen Drive. Staff?
Yes, I've placed an email at your podiums. Just now, the applicant is requesting withdrawal of this item, so they can
Okay.
speak to that if they would wish.
In case there's someone here that made the long journey here to talk about vesting rights for this project, if you want to come forward, the podium is available. If not, we'll look for the applicant to come forward and. All right, anyone representing the applicant?
Good evening, I'm Ryan McMaster with Kimley Horn, who's the applicant on this project representing the owner, Crescent Communities, and we are requesting withdrawal of this item this evening.
All right. Then I will entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Move for
Whoa. To withdraw.
Move to allow withdrawal.
Move to allow withdrawal,
Sorry.
okay.
Move to
Second.
approve to allow withdrawal.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, that means we're moving to item 53, consideration of resolution 2019-105, a resolution to adopt Amendment 3 to the Comprehensive Transportation Network Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In May of 2018, city staff presented and facilitated a discussion on annexation and growth policies within the city of Franklin. As part of this process, staff evaluated the different areas around the city to identify short-term and long-term growth goals. The Goose Creek area was identified as a short-term growth opportunity based on the availability of sanitary sewer, the new fire station, and the improvements associated with the Goose Creek bypass and I-65. In addition, the board continues to fund a significant amount of infrastructure in this area to include recently completed Carruthers Parkway and proposed Long Lane overpass. While proposed annexations in the Goose Creek area have been ongoing, staff has been working on an update to the Comprehensive Transportation Network Plan. As part of Amendment 3, staff is recommending the addition of Project 94, which would be Pratt Lane improvements from Reems-Fleming Boulevard to Paytonsville Road, and Project 95, which would be a new roadway from Lewisburg Pike over to Paytonsville Road. Project 95 would be an additional overpass over I-65, and based on the proposed land use development in this area, the possibility of interchange on I-65 and a future park and ride or transit facility should also be evaluated. These improvements would be subject to future annexation and would be revised as land uses and densities are established in the area. Staff recommends approval to the Planning Commission.
Okay. All right, is anyone in the audience wants to speak to this item? Okay, I see none. Then is there someone representing the applicant? That's us, right?
That's it.
Okay, then
Move.
us, we've heard from you, so we'll move on to a motion.
Move for approval.
Okay, moved and seconded. Did you get that, Elaine? Did you get the move and second?
I move
Okay.
for approval. Jimmy.
Okay. So it's a proper motion. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, we move on to the discussion of the zoning ordinance. So just as a prep here, we've had a lot of conversation about the zoning ordinance for a big part of this whole year, if not maybe longer. So this is a discussion about aligning the Envision Franklin with our ordinance. So as we have a discussion after staff has a chance to present, we'll have an opportunity for those in the audience that want to speak to this. Our standard rules are 2 minutes per person. If you come up and tell us your name and where you live, There is a big clock over here on my right, down by Scott, that will show you where you are relative to that 2 minutes. And unlike the gong show, there's not a big clown that comes out and pulls you off stage, but we will try to manage this as appropriately as we can. So we'll start with staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You have before you tonight an exceptional ordinance that reflects the high-quality standards that Franklin expects in its development. This is the culmination of almost 2 years of very intense, hard work and a robust public outreach process. Here with me is Brian Wright and Bill Wright with TPUDC, our consultant, who have rounded out our team very well and helped us move this ordinance forward to have what we have before you tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian, who'll kick it off.
Great. So Kay, I'm gonna stand over here. I have better energy when I stand up. After all, we're talking about zoning, so it's a little piece of energy to the whole thing. All right, well, thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity to be up here and talk to you and share with you what we've all been working on for so long. Many of you have seen lots and lots about this ordinance. Many of you may have not. So we're going to recognize that we have sort of a mixed group in the audience today, and we're going to go back to the beginning a little bit, but we're going to try to quickly get to the end. So most importantly, if you don't know, we have an amazing planning staff here. We've worked with all kinds of planning departments, and these guys are top-notch. So what you see here is a result of their quality. We've just been helping out. But I think the thing that's important to note is it's a big group, and it's a fun group. So if you have questions and concerns over time, drop in and hang out. You can talk to Emily, the fearless leader, or Kelly's the mastermind. It's all up there. They've all got these great titles. So it's important to know that they're there for you. We, as Kelly said, have rounded out the team. We haven't been the primary author of this. It's not a consultant-driven process. It's really been truly a public process with staff at the steering wheel and us just helping. For us, it's neat, though, if we haven't met before. I'm the principal of Town Planning and Urban Design Collaborative, and we're actually located in Franklin, but we work all over the country. So for us, it's quite a treat to be able to come here and not to get on an airplane to talk to you. But this isn't our first time to do this. So lots of places have entrusted us with their future and the zoning ordinance and helped them crystallize that vision and those documents. So don't worry. I always show this image at the beginning of presentations, especially something like zoning. It's pretty technical. When you see this image, you don't know, are they crashing? Are they coming in for a landing? And that's something that is important to think through as you go through a process like a zoning update, because most of you don't deal with zoning on a daily basis. When you get on an airplane, there's only a few things you need to know. So I'm going to draw a parallel here between the zoning ordinance update and flying on an airplane, right? So you need to know where you're trying to go, most importantly, right? You need to know what time's your flight so you're not late. You need to know what seat you're sitting in so you're not sitting in someone's lap. And then, this is actually probably the most important, where's the bathroom? But the thing that you don't need to know is how to fly the plane. The thing in the back of the seat is tell you how to get out if something goes wrong. It's not the instruction manual, right? So we don't want you to feel like you have to become an expert on a zoning ordinance, right? And have that pressure. So there are certain things that you're going to be passionate about. Get into those, and you have over this long process, as Kelly talked about, and we've heard that. But we just want to make sure we always say that at the beginning. So the city has envisioned Franklin as the guiding document that establishes the vision for the future, and it was really important that it was the foundation of everything moving forward. Within Envision Franklin, there are these design concepts that are laid out on a map. Several of them, for instance, you have one called Regional Commerce that really deals with large-scale commercial development and mixed uses where people are coming in from away. It's not just locally serving. We have neighborhood commercial for the more small-scale, more intimate neighborhood conveniences. There's a number of different residential design concepts in there as well. And there's also development reserve, which is areas that aren't necessarily served by infrastructure and things that are right now in a more rural character. The important part about this is what we'd have to do is figure out how to tie together Envision Franklin, that guiding vision document, with the zoning ordinance. And that's really where the magic happens, because the zoning ordinance is what allows these grand visions that have come before to be implemented, these visions that have gone through their own public process. And so furthermore, then the code went through its public process, and we're continuing to do so here tonight. So you say, well, you know, why zone Franklin in the first place? For those who aren't familiar and those who aren't doing this on a daily basis, what is zoning? You take that for granted that everybody knows that. So it's really the tool that the city uses to help you determine what you can do with your property. Some might say what you can't do with your property. It just depends on your perspective. But it doesn't cause anything to be developed. And so if something's in the zoning ordinance, it's not saying that this is going to happen. It allows things to happen based on the desires of the property owner and the market moving forward. So we've heard a lot through the process. We've heard there are some perceived challenges of the current zoning ordinance, that there's a lot of subjectivity in the process with which a development would come forward. The review process was complicated. The document wasn't user-friendly. There's just not enough, you know, regulation of building appearances and those sorts of things. We heard people say there's too many PUDs and modification of standards with every new development comes through. A lot of nonconformities as well, and then obviously traffic issues we heard about, especially in Cool Springs. So the idea is to then figure out, okay, well, how do you take those perceived challenges and then figure out what will the update do to help with all those things. So most importantly, always going back, it'll align more with Envision Franklin, emphasizing community character as the main concept. It's not just focused on uses and separating one use from the next. It's really about organizing it in a way that makes it a lot more user-friendly. It enhances areas that need improvement. It protects and preserves other areas. And it's really about getting that desired vision to become a reality with more predictable outcomes, so that everybody doesn't have to be afraid anytime a new development ordinance comes through. So that's going to be important. And then have it be clear and simple and easy to understand. And that's important as well. So the thing about zoning, as we always say, you know, it can have mixed results. Zoning can give you this. Oh, you need a microphone. Oh, shoot. Or it can give you this. I heard somebody gasp. Sorry. We haven't written it to give you this, though, so don't worry. You can have, here's a good example, more zeroed in here. Looking at open space here, you've got cherished open space in the form of a downtown civic space. Here, sort of leftover green in the back of whatever wasn't very buildable in a particular development. So the results are mixed. Here, actually, these are both row houses, or townhouses. This isn't townhouses in a prison, but it's, you know, who knows? So the results can be mixed. Zoning can give you one or the other. Somewhere that image on the right had zoning. Sometimes we look back to move forward. So we look at the most loved places around the world, around the country, around the region as inspiration for, you know, what you see in Envision Franklin that people are looking for. This is actually an image of a new development, relatively new. This was built in 1980s, even though it looks like it might have been in the 1880s or 1780s. It's in Gaithersburg, Maryland, but it has all of these kind of walkable, mixed housing types, you know, all these kind of things that we hear about that Envision Franklin says. So sometimes we look backwards and move forward. So one thing that's interesting is it's not just updating a zoning ordinance to update the zoning ordinance, right? There's a change going on around the country. People's preferences are changing. Not everyone, obviously. Some people just like things just as they are. But there's a change going on, and so what the ordinance does partially is start to help respond to that change, because as you see development proposals come before you, there's, you know, that's why there's all these modifications of standards and things that are changing. So we want to address that. So that was a real estate ad, and then you see magazines are all over the place now that are all this sort of hip and exciting and, you know, creative and all these. And you see, you know, people running businesses like this. You know, this guy's in his pajamas, eating potato chips and drinking wine at 9 o'clock in the morning, running his multi-billion-dollar business off of his front porch. And that's different. You couldn't do that before. You used to have to be in Manhattan to do that. Now you can be in Franklin and do that, which is great. You know, where people want to work, the whole work environment has changed. It wants to be more open, you know, studio and lofts and all this. That's changed. People have, this is the kind of developments that a lot of people are living in. Everybody wants to have cornhole courts and beach volleyball in their development. But again, that's not for everybody, So this is just some of the different things. We've got lots of things already in Franklin, and so we're building on that. Got a little lag here, Kelly. Mm-hmm. Next slide. There we go. All right. Next. Perfect. So it's not just about those preferences, though. People who are moving here, or young people who are growing up and have different preferences. That's not just what it's all about, for sure. The way it ties into being important for the city is the economic viability moving into the future. And so whereas this may have once been an incredibly exciting new development all over the country, you can probably see this in any city, you now are seeing people wanting this type of thing happening, right? And so we need to make sure that it supports Envision Franklin, and the zoning ordinance does those things, and so we can be strong into the future. So as Kelly mentioned, there's been a robust public process throughout the past couple of years here going forward. We had the Planapalooza. Anybody come to Planapalooza here? Okay, great, perfect. So the Planapalooza, was just a week-long process. It was open to anyone to come in. We had various meetings with specific topics. These focus group meetings, they were the most well-attended of any we've done around the country. And so that's exciting to see in my hometown here. We had one meeting about the future of Cool Springs, and so we heard things like increasing housing options to be able to have some more affordability. We heard about making parking structures so that you could be more dense, having mixed use, connectivity, all of these things were in there. And we heard, there's some impediments also to having redevelopment happen in some of these areas. Some of it had to do with, the current stormwater standards and all that, not being tailored for it. And then, also just parking standards as well, making it a challenge to do some redevelopment in those areas. We had another meeting about open space and natural resources, and of course we heard people say we want more open space of all types. People saying, 10-minute walk to playgrounds, and we need more trails, safe routes to school, all of these things, that's great. We had a meeting about architecture and design. People talked about, safe and comfortable character with sidewalks and nice details architecturally that was reminiscent of downtown, but not necessarily trying to replicate downtown all the time. And then Bistro lights came up a lot, the little twinkly lights that you see a lot, most people like. We had a meeting about connectivity because it comes up a lot around the city with development proposals, and talking about having more connectivity came up a lot, and really making sure there's pedestrian facilities and bike facilities, and featuring the Harpeth River, and on and on and on. Just great topics, and all this is online as well. We had a meeting on housing in neighborhoods. People were really concerned about companies buying up houses and then turning them into rental properties and losing sort of the neighborhood feel. People were saying that there needs to be a more strict adherence to the standards that are in the zoning ordinance when it comes to new housing. Affordability, needing to stay affordable, and then independent living, sort of lifelong communities. We heard in the downtown meeting that there's not enough convenient parking. Everybody says that. That residential should not necessarily be allowed to be converted into additional uses. That Airbnb should be owner-occupied, or let's say short-term rentals, not to call out any names. And then a grocery store downtown would be great. So we had a hands-on workshop. Community members put dots on maps and kind of voted and said, we like this, we like that. Some of the things they liked here, activated pedestrian environments, outdoor dining, activated shop fronts, and vibrant scenes. They liked a lot of masonry, stone and brick, more natural materials, and then punched window openings, which are sort of a standard traditional window, not just walls of glass. They didn't like the auto-oriented development that we see so often in certain areas of the city, as well as parking in front of buildings. Then they sort of reiterated what they did like by saying they don't like the large spans of glass and reflective materials. We heard they don't like conventional suburban apartment complexes. It's not necessarily that people don't like apartments, it's just the apartment complexes. And then they said when you have larger buildings, they wanted to have more articulation in the architecture, vertical proportions, more sort of contemporary / industrial design in those types of larger buildings. They like traditional architecture in the residential components and traditional materials as well. One thing this was one of the, besides short-term rentals, one of the things we heard the most about was not having garage-dominated fronts of houses. So there's lots of discussions about pushing garages back if you have to have them in the front, but whenever you can, having them not on the front, having them be from the alley, like we have some examples around the city. So we heard a lot about that through the process. So I'm going to turn it back over to Kelly. She's going to run us through some of the specifics here.
All right, so overall, the top changes were to align the zoning district standards with Envision Franklin, to reduce the number of overlay districts, but add a scenic corridor overlay district, to refine the building and site design standards, much of which is based on what Brian talked about, and make improvements to the usability of the ordinance. So on this slide, our old chapters are on the left, and our new chapters are on the right. It looks more complicated on the right, longer, but when you think about development standards on the left, that it was 168 pages, really difficult to use, not navigable, things could get lost. So everything is laid out by topic, so when you want to find information about fences, you can go right there, or open space, you can go right there. The overlay districts was another item. We were able to eliminate 50 overlay districts through this process and add one, the scenic corridors, where we transferred many of the setbacks that were in the character area overlay districts into a new overlay district called scenic corridors. Under the old, you had to go to a lot of different places to find out what your bulk requirements were in your zoning district. And we've replaced that with an easy-to-use two-pager, for the most part, section on each district, so you can find out what your requirements are for each district right there. And there are hyperlinks to everything you need from the district, so your building types, your frontage types, and all the other chapters. It's really easy to use. We put the public draft on the website this May, and we had a really strong public outreach process. As Brian mentioned, we had 8 different Planapalooza meetings and 336 unique participants, many of which participated in multiple meetings. We had several input sessions, 2 rounds of interviews with Planning Commission and BOMA, 15 think tank meetings with design professionals and developers. We had 6 outreach presentations reaching 625 people. We sent out 24,361 property owner notices in the mail to every property owner in the city so that everyone would be aware that we were undergoing a zoning ordinance update. We have had 420 staff meetings over the last 2 years as we completely deconstructed the ordinance and put it back together, maintaining the high quality standards that are in there, refining them where we felt they needed to be refined, and bring forward this ordinance that we have today. Many people looked at our website too. We had 5,315 views on the interactive zoning maps, and a lot of views of our overlay districts and downloads of our draft ordinance. So we do believe that we really tried to get the word out and did. And we had a lot of positive feedback that we've received through this. The graphics really help. We like the architectural requirements. It simplifies the process. We can tell a lot of thought and effort went into the ordinance. I really like the structure. Excellent job organizing the new ordinance, and expect Franklin will continue to set the standard here in Middle Tennessee. The main comment that we've received from developers was about the 40% multifamily allowance in the RC districts in Cool Springs. The main comment was that that was too low of a maximum. And sometimes change is incremental. This proposal is a step toward implementing Envision Franklin, but BOMA can always consider more multifamily in a development through the development plan process. It just gets the case-by-case review like we currently do today. So the requirement in the RC districts allow some more flexibility, but still allow the option to ask for more through the process. And we'd really like to revisit this once we conclude the Cool Springs infrastructure study in about a year. As far as zoning districts and overlay districts, we had quite a few people call in asking about their zoning district. And once we talked that through with them, they were fine with the zoning district. There were a handful of individual concerns about specific properties, and we were able to work through those by revising the zoning district to something that's still implemented in Vision Franklin. And several concerns about the scenic corridor overlay district, especially on the northwest side of the city. And staff reduced the Old Charlotte and Del Rio Pike setbacks along those corridors in response. The biggest general topic was short-term vacation rentals that we heard. The majority of the comments opposed short-term vacation rentals or wanted more regulation of them and seemed supportive of the proposed requirements. A handful expressed concern about the future of their own short-term vacation rentals, but once they understood that state law allowed them to continue via grandfathering, they were fine with that. And several citizens were concerned about the potential future desire to have short-term vacation rentals on their property. So staff is proposing these requirements in all the residential districts due to the long-term impacts to the housing supply, to limit them to a maximum of 1 per lot, and to have the owner reside on the property so that it's still a balance. There's still the ability to have short-term vacation rentals. It's just not the primary use in a residential neighborhood. And I'll turn it back over to Brian to wrap up.
Sure. Only a few more slides, we promise. Most importantly, even though we've gone through all of this robust public outreach process, there's the official process, so which we're starting now. Here we are tonight. On the 12th, there's a BOMA work session, first reading and public hearing. On November the 26th, there's a second reading and public hearing. On the December 10th, there is a third and final reading, and then the effective date of the new ordinance would be on December 30th. So, path forward, besides just those steps, a few things to remember as we move forward into this. The new zoning ordinance is way better than the current zoning ordinance, and we added extra A's up there because that's what we've been hearing. We're not just tooting our own horn. Without exception, every person that I've spoken to has said they like it better, even if there's certain things about it that they're concerned about or whatever. Just overall, I've been blown away by the reception, so that's been very exciting. One of the things that we tell people all around the country when we're working on an ordinance is it doesn't have to be perfect the day you adopt it. And you say, what? What do you mean? Like, there's no such thing as a perfect document. A document that is this complex, has this many pages, has this much important stuff in it, it's impossible for it to be perfect in every way. Here's the thing though. As you move forward, it's not perfect because sometimes you can't anticipate every scenario. And that's the thing. So the idea is that what we're talking about is testing it for a year and then coming and doing a cleanup after that 12-month process. So basically you catch anything that comes up. Now, the other thing that I'll say is, and it didn't get a bullet point, but it should, probably the biggest bullet point, is whenever you're going through an adoption process of an important and complicated document like this, there's things that will come up as discussion points. And if you hadn't gone through 2 years worth of all the stuff that you just saw on the screen, then you sort of sort it out here in this moment, typically, right? For me, what we find is the places that are most successful at the end of the day, have the most successful ordinance, are those that if you have an issue that comes up through the adoption process, you say, okay, well, what's the highest standard? What does the ordinance say? And rather than going to the lowest common denominator of whatever it is that the objection is, and sort of that happens at any particular moment in the adoption process, say, well, there was 2 years worth of thought, effort, discussion, presentations back and forth with all of you, with all of the community and all of that. And so that's where this cleanup process comes. And so if you have a particular thing that's concerning, say, okay, don't worry, we'll get there. You come bring it back. If you've got an objection, don't just say, I don't like that. Say, here's why, and here's the, you know, what supports my objection to it. And you can go through a process, because this staff is unbelievable. Their doors open all the time, and so you walk in the door and you sit down and go through it with everybody. So that's important to remember as you go through. So wrapping up, the most important things for us were making sure that the new zoning ordinance works for the community, because that's really what it's all about, is serving the community. That it has to work for business too. That's hugely important to the success in the future. Based on the demographics and the things we heard, it needs to work for people at all stages of their life. It needs to work economically. And it has to work for character. And that was the thing, the number one thing. Forget short-term rentals and garages on the front of buildings and all of that stuff. People said, don't mess up the character that we love so much. And that is the main goal of what we've been working on for the past 2 years and what we bring before you tonight. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, just to clarify our role here, that the Planning Commission is a recommending body for this particular ordinance. It'll go next, as you saw in the slide, to BOMA for 2 public hearings and a 3rd reading. So you've got opportunities as well to discuss it at that level. But tonight, we want to hear your comments. We will do like we talked about earlier, where if you'll come forward, and ideally, if you can come forward and kind of line up, that will help us process this as efficiently as we can. If you'll tell us your name and where you live, and keep to the 2 minutes, we would love to hear your thoughts. So if anybody wants to be the first to move out and come to the podium, then we'll take your comments.
Well, good evening. I am Debbie Henry. I'm the Executive Director of the TMA Group and the Franklin Transit Authority, located at 708 Columbia Avenue, Franklin, Tennessee. As operators and managers of our local public transit service, I wish to voice support for the City of Franklin's new zoning ordinance, especially specific to transit. As the City of Franklin grows, transit grows as well. So approximately about 20 months ago, with the City of Franklin's support, we established fixed route service in Cool Springs for the first time, which has proven to be a very positive decision. During that expansion process, it became very apparent that the transit infrastructure requirement thresholds were needed, in addition to requirements about existing public transit services or routes, as well as those for the future to be planned. Safety of our riders, transit drivers, and equipment, coupled with connected accessibility to transit stops, transit shelters, and the transit service as a whole, are of paramount importance. The zoning ordinance before you is a progressive, detailed, and concise document. From our perspective, supports the necessary transit infrastructure requirements which are truly needed to effectively plan, operate, and expand our Franklin transit system to meet the needs of our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. My name is Dirk Melton. I'm the Development Director for Market Street Enterprises. We're a locally based commercial real estate investment and development company based in Nashville. I'm here tonight to compliment the planning staff and TPUDC on a very thoughtful, thorough process that we've engaged with that leads you to the zoning ordinance that you see tonight. In 2017, our firm was so encouraged by the new Envision Franklin document that we decided to invest here in Franklin for the first time. And now we're working on a 50-acre redevelopment in the heart of Cool Springs that we hope, when complete, will make a lasting and positive impact on the built environment of Franklin, Tennessee. In the joint workshop in June, the direction for the zoning ordinance was established. Planning and TPUDC created 7 directives to guide the development of the new zoning ordinance. The 7th of those, the one I'll focus on tonight, stated that the zoning ordinance should enhance the long-term economic viability for the city. I think last point is critically important as you consider the impact of your action tonight. For so many years, Franklin has enjoyed tremendous success and offers an amazing quality of life for its residents. Cool Springs, where our project is located, has become a hub for corporate headquarters relocations and a retail mecca for almost 25 years. That said, future success for communities is not guaranteed based on trends, markets, and preferences. Office vacancy in Cool Springs is now 13%. It's double the rate of downtown Nashville. Some retail categories around Cool Springs are struggling. We don't know why exactly, but it's a potential that maybe people don't want to work in standalone office buildings surrounded by surface parking, or maybe they don't want to pass by row after shopping centers to get their basic services. What we think that they do want is a walkable, highly amenitized mix of uses in an environment where they can park their car once and enjoy a host of options. That is the promise of Envision Franklin, now fulfilled in the zoning ordinance that you see here tonight. So I hope that by the end of the evening, I'll be able to replace my compliments to the City of Franklin planning staff and TPUTC with the congratulations for a job well done. We're very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on forward.
All right, thank you. I'm Aubrey Preston. I've got a few notes here so I can try to stay within my 2 minutes here, avoid the gong. I am here, my wife has a veterinary practice called Animalia. Hopefully some of you have seen that out in front of West Haven. And she's tonight over working on unveiling Harvey, which is another famous animal project tonight over at Carnton, so that's going to be a really cool thing. So I'm here speaking on her behalf. That project there, Animalia, we came to this group, and that particular piece of property was an outlying piece of property that was in the county, and it was kind of a problem child for the city at the time. There was a guy that had it that was there before West Haven came, and he was not happy about the city moving out there, and I think it was a standoff, and everybody just kind of agreed to disagree, but he stayed in the county. My wife, Michelle, after selling her practice in Spring Hill, decided she really wanted to have another practice. She just wanted to be a veterinarian, and right in the middle of the recession, thought it was a great idea to open a business. And so found that property, bought it, talked with the city about some things, and through different things ended up agreeing with the city that we would agree to annex that we would agree to voluntarily have that property annexed into the city as a conforming use, and we presented a master plan and with the idea that that property would be able to be developed for healthcare services so that people could walk to the vet clinic, the doctor's office, whatever in the future in that particular little pod there. It's not a piece of property that was ever part of the West Haven development or any of the rules that were made after the fact. So it was kind of an odd piece of property, but together it seemed like we agreed that we solved a problem that came into the city, and everybody agreed that that would be maybe some services that would be helpful. Hopefully those of you who have been there, I think generally speaking, it's a blessing to the people that live out there, and people enjoy that. Whoops, is that the bell?
If you can quickly wrap up, that'd be great.
Okay. In 2012, we agreed to that based on a conforming use. 2009, there was an ordinance that had applied where the north side would have a 300-foot setback. 2017, that was affirmed as a 200-foot setback on the north side of 96. We're concerned that there is a current proposal to have a 300-foot setback on the south side that would basically make our master plan for healthcare services. It would make our property and any plans non-conforming and not possible to follow forward with that. And so we would obviously be concerned about that. We believe that rules are made for positive outcomes. We hope that Animalia has been a positive outcome, and that healthcare services walkable to the people of West Haven and the west side would be a positive outcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Walter Green. I live at 227 4th Avenue South, and I'm a board member of the Franklin Downtown Neighborhood Association, the DNA. The DNA's most important duty is to advocate for the neighborhoods within its boundaries. Our boundaries most closely resemble those of the proposed residential district R4. The DNA is very concerned about non-owner occupied short-term rental vacation rentals, STVRs, in R4. Zone Franklin language calls for newly permitted STVRs within R4 to have an owner permanently occupying the premises and limits the number of rentals to 1 per lot. The DNA Board of Directors has voted overwhelmingly to support that language and to also strongly encourage the city to add whatever resources are necessary to strictly enforce the new rules. Why do we support this? Here are 3 of the reasons. First, R4 is intended to be strictly residential. Short-term rentals in general are businesses. They are small hotels. The short-term rentals that have no owner living on site, non-owner occupied, are small hotels with no on-site manager. There is nothing residential about them, and they should not be in R4. But they are. The explosion of STVRs has put about 40 of these non-owner occupied rentals within R4. Also, non-owner occupied STVRs replace neighbors with small hotels that are either empty or are occupied by transients. This creates voids in our residential areas, thereby damaging the character and connectivity of our neighborhoods. Finally, STVRs are typically located in our smaller, less expensive properties and therefore reduce the inventory of affordable housing. To protect our neighborhoods, the DNA supports a ban of future non-owner occupied short-term rentals in R4, elimination of existing ones as soon as possible, and enforcement of appropriate rules. Thank you.
Great timing, Walter. My name is Ernie Bacon, and I live at 224 4th Avenue South. First, I want to commend the staff, as I have previously, on this new zoning ordinance. It's clear, you can read it, you can scan it on the internet. I've been a 20-plus year member of the Downtown Neighborhood Association and have routinely and strongly advocated for our downtown neighborhoods. I fully support what Walter just said about the DNA in its position to limit the proliferation of short-term rental units. And proliferation is reality. In one block, just one block from where we are sitting tonight, the 300 block of 3rd Avenue South in January had 10 residences. Today, there's 5 residences and 5 short-term rentals. So it does happen, and it happens quick. We support the planning department's recommendations to limit short-term rentals to owner-occupied. Non-owner occupied are a threat to our community and to the integrity. We recognize that you as the Planning Commission have under consideration a broad rewriting affecting the future of Franklin. And our concerns is a very small part of that, but it is concerns for our neighborhood. And I remind you that neighborhoods are the very backbone of any city, and we're asking for your support and consideration. Clean up. It was opened up tonight. Clean up. We're going to have to clean up this ordinance at some point and address density. I just spoke to that. Parking, on another subject, I repeat my concern. There is no parking regulations for downtown Franklin churches, civic, or schools. No parking regulations. It's in the ordinance. You're going to have to revisit it at some point.
Good evening. I'm Rod Heller, 1344 Carnton Lane in Franklin. I'm here to speak for myself, but also as chairman and CEO of Harpeth Associates, some of you know, we're developing the $115 million mixed-use project in downtown Franklin. My focus is on downtown Franklin, not Cool Springs, but on the balance between community character and economic viability that the staff has emphasized its characteristics. We have seen that balance maintained in our work over the last 7 years in moving this project to fruition. And I would like to make 2 comments specifically with respect to the maintenance of that, which leads me to strongly support the view of the staff and to echo the comments by Messrs. Green and Bacon. First, Franklin is a unique community, as we all know, and we decided to invest our funds in part because our belief of the continued viability of a dynamic residential component to downtown Franklin. That makes such a difference to the life and vitality of this community. And I commend the staff for recognition of that point. Second, and this I think will echo views we all feel, the matter of fundamental fairness. Over the last years, as I mentioned, I have seen the work of the city staff in action. We haven't always agreed, but they have helped us maintain the level of quality we have long sought in this project. Indeed, as a recitation of the objectives were stated, we have tried to accomplish much the same in a project that 50 years will stand out as harmonizing historic context and the dynamics of change. I fear that without the continuation of the restrictions, you won't have an equal playing field for those that aren't subject to the same zoning, financial, and regulatory requirements we are. We're providing this coming year, in our first estimated budget, $550,000 to the city of Franklin and to Williamson County as occupancy tax, hotel and motel. Many of the owner-occupied, many of the Airbnb, short-term vacation rentals, don't do that. It's essential, I think, that anyone trying to bring Franklin to this age recognizes the importance of equal treatment, and thus we believe what the staff has presented is a balance between these needs that I've stressed. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else?
Good evening, Planning Commission and Mr. Chairman. Ken Moore, I'm the mayor of Franklin. I'm here tonight to speak in support of the zoning ordinance. We've established a very quick timeline now after 2 years of study on this particular thing, and I would urge passage of it tonight. But I have to reflect back that this is the second zoning ordinance that I'll be part of. In 2007, when I first came on the board, we had a zoning ordinance, and I remember making the motion that, where there was a motion to delay implementing it for 6 months. And my comment that night would be the same as I would on this one, as Brian mentioned, is that it's necessary to go ahead and pass it and use it to determine how it may need to be tweaked here and there. Staff's worked very hard on this, and I applaud them, and I'm so proud of the planning department staff. You know, it's important that we move on with this. It ensures that we're going to continue to have the high quality standards that we expect. I love that it's easier to use. I like that it's more intuitive. I like that it reduces many of the conflicts we've seen in the old ordinance, that it's more predictable, and also it preserves and creates value in our community. And finally, continues to promote economic vitality in our community. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. Thank you for the hard work that you do, and I hope you'll approve it.
Appreciate it. All right, anyone else? Okay, then I call the public portion of this closed. We'll move on to the commission for a motion. No approved. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I have a couple of comments.
Go ahead, Tom.
I know this is going to be a working process, but there's 2 areas that I would like to talk about specifically. One is going back to a 20-foot setback on garages, on houses, because I think that would directly affect, once again, the cost of a home in the city of Franklin. It's going to create a larger building envelope, which is going to create a larger lot, which in a lot of times is going to create a larger building, which is it's going to drive up the high price of homes continually in the city of Franklin. Another area of concern that I have is the scenic overlay. I admit that I did not make all the meetings. I was late to a couple of the meetings, but I don't think that this section was discussed as much detail as it should have been discussed in. And I would like to amend the motion and ask that this section, 4.9 SCO Scenic Corridor Overlay District, be removed from tonight's vote and so we discuss at a later date and added back.
Okay, that's a proper amendment. Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion about the motion to amend the main motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, please.
I think the proper motion should be to recommend to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen
Okay.
that an amendment to do what you said.
I will recommend to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen an amendment because I think it will detrimentally affect the property values of people along this corridor. I'm going to add that to it also for future. So the stakeholders need to be protected in the future. So I'll make that recommendation to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
Is that clear enough?
So is a motion to
Into
recommend
the-
approval of what section?
Section 4.9 SCO Scenic Corridor Overlay District. At this time, not permanently remove it, but at this time so it can be discussed further, because I think that it was not discussed enough prior to voting on it tonight. So I do think it could have detrimental effects on the property owner stakeholders along the.
All right, so that's a proper motion. Alma, you second that changed motion? Okay, so moved and seconded. Any discussion?
So, okay. Scott, to Scott's amendment is what I want to speak to. So Scott, it sounds to me, and I want to talk to the staff after that. If we're going to make that sounds like a pretty major amendment. Would it not be proper, because I don't think that this isn't life or death. Should we not then, if we're going to make that big of an amendment, should we not simply approve this tonight and then discuss this more before we, before we approve this?
Well, we are suggesting, well, we're recommending
before we
approval
recommend
to the Board and Aldermen.
So in my opinion, if that's pretty major, should we not discuss that, or should we not look at that before we pass this on, or before we recommend approval to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen?
Well, I'm trying not to hold up the old document going forward. I'm trying to keep the document going forward, but I just think that this area needs to be discussed in more depth.
Well, in my opinion, I would be more well, I'm just gonna speak for me. I would be more comfortable with deferring it and discussing that major part rather than passing on this, to me, it's kind of a limping, rather than passing it on to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. That's a pretty major part, because it's been said tonight that this is the living, breathing document, which would obviously be changed as we go forward. That, to me, that's pretty major. I wouldn't be able to support, I support looking at it.
Okay.
But I would not be able to support your amendment, is what I'm saying. So I'd rather defer it and look at that entire section and then send it on totally to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen with a recommendation or not, is what I'm saying. I think I'd rather look at it and then send it on or not, is what I'm
All right,
saying.
Eric, will you?
Can
hold
I
on a
give you a little feedback
Please
on
do.
that? We've already scheduled 2 public hearings related to the adoption of the zoning ordinance,
Okay.
one of which is November 12th.
Okay.
And due to your meeting, it's difficult to wait for your action. We
Okay,
really
I got you.
would request your recommendation one way or
Okay.
another.
All right.
So that the board can move along with
All
what
right.
we've already scheduled and given public
Okay.
notice about.
All right.
So,
Mine is just
that's
a
helpful.
recommendation to vote.
All right, let's do it. I'm with you. All right.
And
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to add that a number of these corridors that have setbacks in the SCO are currently in our zoning ordinance today. They're just in the character area overlay districts.
Okay.
There are some more that are in Envision Franklin, and implementing the Heritage Road scenic corridors as adopted by BOMA quite a number of years ago.
Okay.
All right, so any other discussion? Alma?
Yes, there's another issue on the accessory dwellings being owner occupied. My system is not
Hold on one
working.
second, Alma. We're just this is an amendment to the motion.
Okay.
So we're just gonna talk about the scenic corridors for this one.
I'm
And we can get into that later, so.
All right.
Any other discussion
good.
on the scenic corridors, recommendation to remove it from the ordinance? Any other comments? Okay, all in favor of the recommendation to remove the scenic corridor portion of the ordinance?
It's actually to delay, to go to Bowman for further discussion,
Okay,
not to actually remove.
okay.
What?
So,
Don't want to remove it.
I
Just
think
wants
he
to
said remove.
discuss it more.
He said remove.
So,
but I don't think that's in essence, a
removal an
deferral,
option?
and we're not deferring.
And then it'd be removal.
Yeah, I thought the amendment was an amendment to recommend removal
He
of
said
4.9.
removal.
Okay.
Is that,
He said.
That's what I thought he said too,
Okay, I'll
but
go with that.
I'm getting older.
All right.
No, he said remove.
So am I.
All right. So, the motion is, this is the amendment to the main motion to recommend to BOMA removal of the scenic corridor portion of the amendment, of the zoning ordinance. Does that sound cool, everybody? Everybody's clear? Okay, all in favor of that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, with the noes, please raise your hand. All right, motion fails. So we're back to the main motion. Any other amendments to the main motion? Ms. Peterson?
I want to have a discussion.
Yeah, sure.
But we need to say that our motion is to recommend approval to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
Right.
It is not
He did.
to
He said.
approve it, but it's to
Right.
recommend approval.
That's right.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Okay.
Honestly, that there are so many things in this, and I was just looking whenever we were going through this, and I saw something on page 114, and believe it or not, you can just punch, and get to that. It's section 6.3. Yeah, okay. If you go on down on the, further on that page there, it says that the entry features will have a covered porch, a covered stoop, or a balcony over the entrance. Now, I mean, that's kind of cutting out everything like the Federalist type of house that doesn't have a porch on it. I never noticed that until tonight. Everything's got to be a little craftsman type house. I mean, that's what this says here. The entry has to be. It has to have a covered porch, a covered stoop, or a balcony over the entrance. And there are plenty of houses, including some historic houses, I'm sure, that do not have that. I mean, that's not a,
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Can I make
It speaks to maybe the fact that it's not a perfect document. There's a lot of things.
I know, but this is
test.
going to have a huge difference on anybody who wants to build any kind of house other than kind of a craftsman style house.
Would that allow you a modification of standard? Okay.
Yeah.
So someone could request a modification of standard to that if,
Well, I'm just
would sort
saying
of
that is
highlight
something that needs to be, and that would be a way to handle it. But I'm saying that is something that even after we have done this, we may want to discuss, because a friend of mine many years ago gave me a book called The Old Way of Seeing, and it specifically talked about types of houses like that.
okay. Any other comments?
Of course, there are many others I could say, but I'm just,
we could go on and on about.
absolutely.
The garages and the 20-foot versus the 10 and just a lot of things in there. But to Eric's point, we have a opportunity for the public to speak at the two more times. And for Scott's motion there, that goes without saying, that'll be discussed as well during that public acknowledgement, and Mayor and Alderman will get to vote on it. So it's, we're recommending that this go forward like it is, and all the effort that was put into it be considered. And as Brian has mentioned, the opportunity to revisit it 6 months or a year from now, we'll obviously want to make some changes like we're doing today. We felt should change a year ago. So I'm for it.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, I'll just say that, you know, when that year cleanup period, I think, you know, there will be more items that come up. And, you know, for me, I think that's kind of a good testing thing, and especially, you know, with the scenic corridor, with the stoops on the houses, you know, that could be a good method of kind of getting more input, especially with the public.
Well, that was basically what I was gonna say, is we could start taking notes along with planning
Yeah.
ourselves and
Keep
things
a list.
to take a look at.
Yep.
So is there an opportunity to make some changes before it passes? I mean, we know something's gonna pass, so.
Your opportunity is really tonight. We do plan on making a list and watching these items as they come up, and then we'll be back before you to look at specific topics into the next year. But we hope to compile a list and then bring it to you toward the end of the year so that we can do it in a complete way, especially with the way that vesting works now.
Okay.
I can add too that, you could really just, staff could set up a process by which you sort of make the wish list and you just add to it when there's an issue that comes up, that, you know, is a difficulty. You just add things to that list. And then, you know, on this day, we're gonna revisit those things, and so it's not just a amorphous thing, it's a rigorous process.
Do you see less modification of standards being requested on the level that we have today with them?
I sure hope not.
Because that, you know, that time will tell, right? If modifications come in, they want garages 10 foot instead of 20, we may be sympathetic to that.
That's right.
Because if I've drawn plans for 10 years and have to go back and change them, and redraw them again, I mean, we got rid of the obnoxious houses that were built with the garages sticking way out front, went to a more, style that recessed that garage back. But to what your point is, those comments are great. You know, we gotta think about the aging population too, with the 0 grade instead of the minimum 18 inches off the ground. And so that's, you know, people gotta be able to get in their house. And if you make them climb steps 18 inches high, you know, it's, you're pushing everybody into some sort of skilled nursing.
Okay.
I mean, there's just a lot of pros and cons about it.
Yeah.
Kelly, you said any issues would need to be addressed tonight. The Housing Commission was recommending a change where accessible dwelling units not have to be owner occupied. And that was something that was sent in the form of letters. And so I am expressing that point again. I don't know how we can change that. So I would recommend or suggest to them that they talk to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen before the public hearings. Since we are I will be voting to recommend the zoning ordinance to go forward to BOMA, but that is something that we wanted to express because there are deep lots in some of the areas where there are workforce housing and people, it's an opportunity for more affordable homes for someone to be able to build a unit back there for one of their relatives, and they can't occupy their home and the other home. They can't occupy 2 homes, so I don't understand the concept on that.
You might explain that, because I think she doesn't get it quite, so it might be helpful.
Yes, so accessory dwellings came forward a few years ago to allow them in existing neighborhoods in certain areas in central Franklin to add dwellings in the backyards of homes. And it was fairly controversial at the time because you're adding people in backyards. And so one of the rules to try to stop investors from coming in, buying up properties, building an accessory dwelling in the backyard, and then having a 2-unit rental property was to require ownership and require the property owner to live on the property so that they could rent it to their family member or let their family member live there or rent it out and earn additional income, but it would be the person who own the property doing that.
To live there, okay.
Instead of buying up multiple properties and then having multiple rental units.
So they're not living in both houses?
No.
They're living in the main house,
And
and they're
then,
renting out the
Okay.
accessory house?
Yes, or vice
Or vice
versa.
versa.
Someone who wanted to maybe live in the accessory dwelling and get a higher rental income from their front
Sure.
larger home could do that as well.
Okay.
so there would still be an opportunity for an affordable element there.
Absolutely. It is not preventing that at all.
I have a quick question to that.
Hold on, let's,
Okay.
Yeah.
Roger had something real quick.
Just to say that I think we need to be careful at having a discussion at this finite level this far into the process, given that we've got public hearings already scheduled and because 3 months from now, we'll have a new list of half a dozen things that we don't think we can live with. And so we just go through the process. If we can deal with things we absolutely can't live with by going through the modification of standard process, then we'll do that on a case-by-case basis. But I'm going to vote to recommend approval to the board, Mayor.
I will also as well,
I'm
but
gonna
there
move
were
now.
2 or
You're
3
good?
things
I'm
that
good.
were brought to our attention that I was going to bring up, and I did.
Ann, you had something?
Oh, I was just going to say, a number of years ago, there was a discussion about having accessory dwelling units in the back of any lot, any residential lot. And for many people, if you had an extra dwelling unit in the back of your next door neighbor, it was going to be looking right down on your backyard. And so there were a lot of people who did not want to see that. And so that is one reason that I think it was eventually approved in, as you say, in certain areas. But I can remember years and years ago proposals that you be allowed to do that in any residential lot. And as I say, on some of them, they're so small that if you had an extra unit in the lot next to you, it could just be completely impinging upon your privacy, because normally the backyards, work together like that and everything. But I do want to say something else. Whenever we were talking about the zoning ordinance back, whenever some of us became elected officials, I was actually on the planning commission when that one was being discussed all the time, as indeed some of you were. I actually spoke against that other zoning ordinance before it was approved, before I became an elected official. And I said, I think at the time, there were dozens of things in there I didn't like. The more I read it, there became hundreds of things in our current zoning ordinance I didn't like, and I swear there might be thousands, because the more you learned about it, there were a lot of things in there. There were some good things too, but I mean, there were many good things. They just kind of overreached on. So it's really good to kind of get something that's more reasonable.
It definitely wasn't a 1-hour discussion. Maybe a 1-month discussion.
That's right.
All right, any other comments before we vote? So we have a motion that's not been amended, it's the main motion. Any other thoughts before we vote on the main motion to approve or recommend approval?
Recommend approval, yeah, please.
To the BOMA. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We have approval to recommend. Any other business? Staff?
Hi.
Hi.
My name's Amy Smith, and I'm sorry I didn't speak earlier, but y'all's form said that if you didn't want to speak, you could just fill it out, so I
Okay.
apologize.
That's
So, I actually live at 548 Franklin Road, and I am actually supporting the rezoning of my property to general office, which is actually in the Envision Franklin proposal, and I support that, that y'all's vision.
Okay.
For my property.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, if there's no other business, then do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Enjoy your November.